Alright, so I'm going to just run through how to get everything kind of quickly and easily from kind of beginning to end so that you guys can grade out your lots fairly quickly. So what I'm basically starting out with a blank drawing that's got just my lot lines, my building pads, my the road in here, my existing ground, and I'm going to go from the beginning to the end with the grading process. So first thing I want to do is all these lines for my properties I've made as just polylines. They're not parcel segments, they're not feature lines, they're not anything right now, they're just 2D polylines. So first thing you'd want to do is you'd want to make sure that with your road, okay, you want to extract the boundary of your road. So if I select my road surface and I go up to extract from surface, extract objects, and I want to extract all of the borders. Okay, so it's all the edges of those surface. And then I hit OK. And now what it's done is it's created, if we look at the properties here, it's a 3D polyline. Now those 3D polylines I want to create as 2D polylines. So there's a command called convert 3D polys, and then if I select all the 3D polys that of the boundaries of my surface that I extracted and enter, now if I look at those, they are now properties, they are 2D polylines. They're no longer 3D. Okay. Then from there what I'm going to do is I'm going to select those two and I want to flatten them out to 0 elevation. Okay, so now these are at 0. Okay, I'm going to select all of these polylines, so I probably can just select similar to get the lots and all that stuff, and I'm going to flatten those as well so they get to be at 0. Okay, now everything's at 0. Now what the key here is, you have to make sure that your lot lines end at your edge of your road surface. So the way, and I've already gone through and trimmed and extended. One thing that might be handy is to actually go through and select all those that are similar, select your polylines that you created along the edge of the road, and just call and do an ISO. So you isolate those objects. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to extend or trim all of these lot lines so that they hit that. So if for some reason, just for an example, if your road were out here, right, it's not quite to the right-of-way line, then you'd have to do an extend, EX, and pick those polylines and extend those, all of those out, and you'd go around and extend them. Okay, if in this case mine actually goes out beyond, my road goes out beyond the right-of-way, then I would do a trim, select that road polyline, and just make my way around and trim all of them out based off of that edge of the road. Okay, and I've already gone through for the sake of time, and I've already extended and trimmed all of the ones that I need around here so that everything hits. Oh, that one didn't go. Trim. There we go. Alright, so once you've done that, then you're going to unisolate, so it brings everything back. Now that you've done that, now it's time to start creating your feature lines. So the easiest thing is to start probably with your road. So go in and go to feature line, create a feature line from objects. I'm going to pick that boundary. Okay, and I'm going to pick, so basically I'm picking all the boundaries of those polylines for my road surface. And I'm going to have it, if you haven't created a new group, you have to hit this little button and create a new group and call it grading. I already have one created, so that's the site that I want to go to. For the name, since I've selected multiples, I'm going to leave the next counter. But instead of having it called feature, I'm just going to call it ROW for right away. So it's going to be right away 1, right away 2, and so on. I don't want those lines anymore. I don't need them anymore. If you want, you can keep them, but I'm going to erase them just to get rid of them. I'm going to assign the elevations to them. I'm going to hit OK. And I want all those elevations to come from the surface, but from my road FG surface, the surface of my road, not the EG. Okay, you shouldn't have to do intermediate grade breakpoints on this because it's already got like vertexes at every single place that it would insert a grade breakpoint, so there's no point in doing that. I hit OK, and it's going to run through that process, and now I've got feature lines, feature line and feature line, all at elevation. Now that I've done that, I can do the outside of my lots, or the outside of the property boundary. So I've already trimmed everything out so that it's just a perfect square basically. All the other lines I don't need. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to feature line from objects, pick my north line. Okay, my north line, make sure it's going to the site grading, the same site as all of the other ones, and I'm going to call this one north boundary. Okay, in this case I'm going to keep it, I'm not going to erase it. I still want that line there. And I'm going to assign elevations. Hit OK. I'm going to assign the elevations from the EG surface because I want everything to at the outer boundaries to go to EG. I'm going to insert intermediate grade breakpoints in that instance, so it's going to insert all along just different points where it crosses the surface. And then hit OK. And now it's processed that line. Now I'm going to do my east line. So I go to feature line from objects, pick that east line, again site grading, call this one east boundary. I don't want to erase the existing entity, I do want to assign elevations. So hit OK from the EG surface with intermediate grade breakpoints, and OK. Okay, let's process that. Now we're going to do the south line here. So go to my feature line from objects, pick that south line. I'm going to call this south boundary. Okay, and OK. EG, intermediate grade breakpoints, yes. And the last one, I'm going to do feature line from objects, pick that west line, and I'm going to call this one west boundary. Okay, and same thing, EG with intermediate grade breakpoints. So now I've got my roads, I've got my outer boundaries. Next thing that I like to do is a quick easy one to do is the building pads. Okay, so one easy way, and then to adjust it later instead of having to get the exact distance or slope from the back of curb as you go along. Some cities have regulations, like city of Wahpeton, how building pads need to be 27 inches above the back of curb. In that case, you'd have to measure out every single one. For this design, all you're going to do is you select your road surface, right click, go to properties, take a look at what your highest elevation is. Okay, and most of ours have a 50-foot setback from the right-of-way, our building pads. So if we were to go at a 1%, which is our minimum, at 50 feet, we would be going half a foot basically. So I want to add a half a foot to that, which would bring me to 1047.89. I'm going to round it to the nearest half foot, so I'm going to call it 1048. Alright, so now that makes it pretty easy because I can just go and select one of my building pads, right click, select similar, so it selects all my building pads, go up to feature line, from objects, make sure it's going on the grading site, change the name, just still want to keep next counter, but we don't want it to be feature. I'm going to call this lot pad, and then that's going to be lot pad 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Alright, in this case, I don't necessarily, I'll keep the existing entity. I can always freeze it if I don't want it. I'm going to assign elevations to it, and I hit OK. And this one, it's not from a surface, I want to give it an actual elevation. So I'm going to do 1048. And hit OK, and now every single building pad is at 1048. Now we want our in between our building pads to be graded out so that everything flows the right way. Now I know in the previous lessons and in previous videos I showed you making a feature line from each of the building pads in. That's probably one of the more precise methods. There is a probably easier method. Whether it's better or not, it depends on case-by-case basis. But for this project, we could do it. So what I'm going to do is I've got these polylines, and these polylines should go to that feature line because I trimmed them, and it's going to go to that back a lot. So what I can do is if I go through and I start making these into feature lines, then I can start creating these to elevation. So there's different ways to do this. They're probably both the same amount of time it takes. So if I go feature line from objects and I pick that one, then you can go in and make sure, actually probably the easiest way, just forget that, cancel out. I'm going to actually do right click on that, or click on each one of these. I don't want to select similar because there's some that I don't want. I just want the ones that go from the back a lot to my edge of road, or the property boundary to the edge of the road. We'll look at the other ones that are in the middle in a minute. Okay, so if I select all of those, alright, now I've got all those on the outer edge selected. I'm going to go to feature line from objects. Again, I'm just going to call them feature next counter. I don't need to make them a name. And I don't want to erase the existing entity on these ones. I want to keep those lot lines. And for this case, I'm going to assign elevations, and you're going to notice why in a second. I hit OK, and I want to assign using a surface, and I don't want to insert intermediate grade breakpoints. And since they're all touching the road, I want them to go from the road. Okay, and I'm going to hit OK, and it goes through and it makes all of those a feature line. However, if you go to your elevation editor, you notice that only one of them has an elevation, the other is 0, because out here in the back of the lot, it didn't pick up a road surface elevation because it's not on the road surface. So now what I can do is I can always go through and select these and pick like that one, which is the back of the lot, and I can choose the this elevation from surface and make sure to set them to EG, and there we go. And then I can select the next one, and I can go to elevation editor, pick the one that's 0 from surface, EG, OK. Okay, and I do the same thing, and I go all the way around. I wish there was an easier way to set those ones, but unfortunately there's not. Alright. Okay. Also, you'll notice that some of these, so my existing ground, it's off. So if I click on this, right here it's got a surface at EG, right here it doesn't have a surface at EG. So one thing to do is to click on this and insert an elevation point at these endpoints. Okay, so like right there. And right now it's set to 0. I'm just going to accept that. That's fine, because it's picking up the elevation from that other one. So endpoint there, 0 is fine. Endpoint there, 0 is fine for now. I'll adjust it later. Alright, so all of these are off the EG. So now what I can do is if I click on this border line, go to my elevation editor, alright, I can clearly see here already that from 0, which is this corner right down here, okay, I need to figure out what that elevation is. So if I go to this line, look at my elevation editor for that line, I can see that at that point there it's at 0 elevation, but at the point that's 0.68 feet over, it hits the EG. So I'm just going to set that first point to that same elevation. It's probably pretty close there in real life. Okay, now that I've done that, when I click on this polyline for the west line and look at the elevation editor, now 0, which is this point, has an elevation. So I can see that from this point to this point, which is the one where it touches the EG right here, or right here, sorry, it goes from 1044.83 to 1045.25. So an easy way, just a quick and dirty way to do it, is just to figure out what that elevation is. So if I open up my calculator and I see that it's going from 1045.25 right here to 1044.83, 44.83. Okay, so I subtract those two and I can see that there's 0.42 feet of difference. And again, to figure out a percentage slope, I see that it goes 1,226.83 feet. So rise over run. So here's my rise. So I enter the 1226.83. So now we have rise over run, divide. So that number there is my how many feet per foot it's dropping. You have to multiply that by 100 to get it into a percentage. So 0.03425% is what it's sloping at. So let's say 0.03. Okay, so 0.03. So now if I go here to this start point down here, and I go ahead, since I'm climbing, I go ahead at a 0.3, and again ahead at a 0.3, and again at a 0.3, and oops, not wrong one, at a 0.3, at a 0.3. Now everything has its elevation and it's somewhat correct, right? It's cheating the system a little bit, but that's how it works best for us. Alright, now that I've done that, these lines here now have been given an elevation. See the back lots, they already have their elevation, because now that I sucked this guy up, it brought these ones up too. So you're going to want to continue around, so make sure that all of these back lots are at the EG. Alright, so just keep doing that. Okay, I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to keep going around just so that for you guys you don't have to watch me click all the time. Alright, so now I went around and I did all those. Key here is make sure that when you're doing that, when you do your elevation editor, you're selecting this and then doing the elevation from surface. If you don't have anything selected and you just come in and you do that, it's going to assign both to the EG and then it's going to be off. Okay, so just a little word of caution there. Alright, now that I've got complete enclosure around those, what I want to do is I want to add instead of doing these little side gratings, I'm just going to add a point in these somewhere along those lines. So if I first off select this one, I insert an elevation point, and if I just pick right there, and I'm just not going to specify an elevation, I'm just going to have it whatever's default. Alright, and then I go to my next one, so I select this one, insert into elevation point, pick the middle, select that, and that's good. Go to this one, elevation point, pick there somewhere, select that one, out of that, go to the next one, elevation point, pick that point there, next one, oops, sorry, elevation editor, insert elevation point, pick a spot there, accept that, go back, pick this line, elevation point right there. Okay, and I'm gonna pause it now and I'm gonna continue on and do all of those ones like that. Alright, so now I've gone through and put those little intermediate points, whoops, along each one of those, insert the elevation point along each one. What it does is it puts it at the elevation that this would be a straight grade. So now what I need to do is go through and adjust it so that I get the 1% slopes that I need. So next thing to do is click on like this one here, go to elevation editor, and I can see that, so I need to make sure that I go at a 1%. So if I do this one needs to go up at a 1%, right, because it needs to go up and then down. I can't change these two elevations. They need to stay as is, right, at the FG and the EG in the back. So FG in the front, EG in the back, and this is the point right in the middle, the little crown. So I see that, okay, so from the road to that grade break, I've got a 1%, but to the back of the lot, it's at a minus 0.86. I can't change that. So what I do is I change the grade back from the back of the lot at a positive 1%. So now what it's doing is it's going from here back at a 1%, but here to here is now at a 1.38%. Okay, and that works. So I'll accept that, go to the next one, elevation editor. Now I see that, so one thing to do is probably, since we're so flat, whichever distance is longest, that's the one we should change first. So for instance, this one, the grade to the back is the longest, so that's what I want to change. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go here and change the grade back at a positive 1%. So now that means that from here it's going up at a 2.22% now, and then down at a 1%. So that's good. We want the high point to be in the middle. So I accept that. Go to the next one. Elevation editor. Okay, again, this is the longest distance from the back, so I'm going to change this one to a positive 1% for grade back. Okay, now I've got 1% and a 1.42%, and the high point is in the middle. It's good. Again, do not change these two values. They need to stay the same. So that means when you're changing things, the only things that you can change are the grade ahead for the first one and the grade back for the last one. If you change any of these two values here in the middle, it's going to adjust the elevation here and here, and that would screw things up big time. So only time you want to change things is the grade ahead for the first station and the grade back for the last station, which will change the elevation in the middle, but it won't change the elevation at the start and the end. Okay, so then I go to the next one, elevation editor, change that grade back to a 1%. Now I have 1.35 and a 1, high points in the middle, good. Next one, select that one, elevation editor, change the grade back for the last one at a positive 1, so I have a 1% and a 1.92%, good. Next one, elevation editor, change this to a 1%, okay, and now I have a 1%, but 0.39% in the front. So I need to go back here and change the grade ahead for the first one to a 1%. So now this is a 1% and this is a 1.33%. So that was a little different. But these two remain the same, and this is the only one that changed because I only changed this percentage and this percentage. Okay, and I see that that's higher than these two, so that's good. Go to the next one. This is probably another one that's going to do the same. So here's my long end, so if I change the back end to 1%, oh, so that one did work. So 1%, 2.18%. So we're good. Middle one's a high point. Great. Go to the next one. Elevation editor. Change this one to a 1%. 3.61, that meets. This is high point. Good to go. So you're going to want to do that for all these lots. So I'm going to pause for a second while I do mine. Okay, so there I've got all mine now. So the key here is make sure that when you're doing the elevation editor, for the first one, the grade ahead is at least a positive one, and the grade back for the last one is at least a positive one. So they should both be positive numbers. They shouldn't be negatives. Okay. Otherwise, if they're negatives, they'd be flowing downhill. So once you've got all that, then it's just a matter of starting to put in the surface. So what I would do then is, and I like to work my way from the outer in, it just makes more sense. So I'm going to go up to grading creation tools. Again, you want to set the grading group, so you hit this little first button. Make sure you're using the right site, the grading site that you have all your feature lines on. Okay. Call it something like lot grading. Alright, automatic surface creation, yes, we're going to use the group name, so it's going to be called, the surface is going to be called lot grading. I'm going to do contours 1 and 5 design. I'm going to hit OK, and now I'm ready to go. So I hit the little button here, the drop down, and choose create infill. And then I just go around and click in all of those ones that I have just graded out. So all the ones on the outer edge. Alright, go down here and make sure you don't click in the road, because it would grade it out, but we don't want it because that's already been done in highway. So I click on all of these. Come on, okay. It's just a little bit, takes a little bit of time, but and then once you're done, just enter out, and it goes through and builds a surface. Now right off the bat, I notice that it's doing something funny here on the front line. For some reason it looks like it's dropping down to 0. So I'm going to first off select that surface, send it to back, pick that feature line, take a look at my elevation editor for that feature line. So I got a lot in here that's at 0. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that all of this goes to the right elevation. So I'm going to go up here, pick this elevations from surface, make sure to choose the roads FG, hit OK, enter. Oh, it didn't quite go. Maybe what I'll do is I'll pick this point, shift, select the last one, elevation from surface, road FG, OK. There we go. Fixed it. Okay, because otherwise we would have had some messed up stuff going on. So that means that this one is probably the same. So if I look at the elevation editor for that road right-of-way edge, yep, got a bunch of zeros. So for some reason it's not going to the right surface. So I'm going to select first one, shift, select the last one, elevation from surface, FG, OK. And good. Alright. So now that I've done that, I can close the grading creation tools. I don't need it. So I've got all the lots graded out. Now what I want to do is I want to do an analysis on it and make sure that everything is at the right slopes. So I'm going to pick that surface. I'm going to go up here and do surface properties. And under the analysis tab, I'm going to choose slopes as my analysis type. Choose 3 classes, or 3 ranges. Hit the down arrow to put them down here. So I want to go from 0 to 1 as my first range, because that's flatter than I am required. And then 1 to 25% is what I'm required to do. And then the last one will be from 25 and so on. Okay, and then I change my colors. Usually my flat areas I'm going to put as blue. My good areas I'm going to change to green. And my too steep of an area I'm going to put as red. I'm going to hit OK. You're going to notice nothing changed because I need to go back up here to my edit surface style. Under the display tab, I need to go and turn on slopes. Once you do that, you're going to notice that it's colored out. Okay, so now I've got colors, and I notice that I have no red, which is good, because if I had red would be an area where it's too steep. the blue areas are too flat, not steep enough. So if you've got a blue building pad, that's fine, that should be flat. So now what I want to do is start to just fix areas that are too flat. So as long as you have set the surface display order to the back, then you can click on these feature lines that are in the front. So I can see here from the building pad down to these high points, it's not steep enough. So I'm going to select that building pad and I'm going to raise it up a little bit. So one thing I can do is I can just go here and hit the raise. So select it, hit the raise or lower, and select 0.5 elevation. I want to go half-foot increments. So I change that to half a foot. Okay, it fixes that part. Now this part's a little off, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to raise and lower that one by half a foot. Okay, so it fixes that little piece. Now this is a little off here, so I'm going to raise or lower that one. So I'm going to go to my raise or lower by another half a foot. Okay, didn't quite fix it, so I'm going to raise or lower by another half a foot. Okay, fix that. Go to this one. This is still not fixed, so raise or lower by half a foot. Fix that. Okay, this little thing we'll take a look at later, but it's probably just the way the tin lines are. Now this one, too flat, so I'm going to select that, raise or lower by half a foot. Fix that one. Raise or lower this one by half a foot. Alright, fix that side, but didn't fix this side, so I probably have to raise and lower it another half a foot. Now it's good. Pick the next one, raise or lower by half a foot. Didn't quite fix it, so another raise and lower half a foot. Now it did. Next one, that needs to be fixed, so raise or lower by half a foot. It fixed that one. Raise or lower by half a foot. Fix that one. Okay, this one right here, this whole back of the lot's too flat, so I raise or lower by half a foot. Not quite, so raise or lower by another half a foot. Okay, it fixed the back, but it didn't fix these two sides, so I'm going to raise or lower that by another half a foot. And now it fixed it. Okay, this building pad needs to be raised by half a foot. Didn't fix it, so I'm going to raise or lower by another half a foot. Okay, it fixed the one side but didn't fix the other side for some reason. So I'm going to raise it lower by another half a foot. So something's going on here. So I'm guessing even if I raised or lowered it by another half a foot, oh, it did fix it. So if you get to the point where it doesn't fix it, you may want to add a feature line just from the building pad to the side again, just to kind of help direct contour lines. Okay, so again, this one I'm going to raise or lower by half a foot. Didn't fix it, so I'm going to raise it or lower it by another half a foot. Fixed it. So you're going to go around and fix all those so that it works. I'm going to pause it while I finish up mine. Alright, so now I'm back. I've gone through and I've done all those so they look like they work. Now just to show you what I would do for stuff like this. So what I would do is select my surface, go back up to my surface style, turn off the slopes. Okay, so I don't have those on. Alright, one thing that I'd want to display is my tin line, or my tin lines. So again, if my surface style, I make sure to turn on the triangles. Okay, once the triangles are on, then I can look at how things are formulated. So one thing I've got here is I've got a lot of tin lines going from this point. I probably want the tin lines to go from the corner up to this building pad corner. So if I select my surface, go up to Edit Surface, Swap Edge, then I can start swapping these tin lines so that all of these ones go to the corner. Okay, same thing with these. I don't want these going across here, so I start swapping those tin lines out. Okay, so now that's looking a little better. Now if I go in, and here's another one, I don't want that to go that way. I want it to go to the building corner. So you can actually just go around and do all of those if you want. So like this one, I want it to go across. Okay, these ones are looking good. I'm guessing when you get to the corner here, this is not good, so I start swapping those edges over. Okay, and you just continue all the way around and do that. Now, if I go back to my surface style, turn off my triangles, I don't want those on anymore, turn back on my slopes, you'll see that those blue flat areas that I used to have, probably in those corners, they're gone. Don't worry about these jagged stuff yet, we'll fix those at a later time. But now I've got a surface, so here I notice I got a blue flat piece. Again, if I select the surface, surface style, turn on my triangles, turn off my slopes. Okay, the only reason I'm turning off the slopes is because it gets too hectic. Now I can swap these tin lines out. So I edit surface, swap edge, pick that line, and that probably will fix it. Now if I go back to my surface style, turn off my triangles, turn on my slopes, fixes that blue flat area that was in the back. Okay, so now that I've got my outer lots working, now I can start working on my inner lots. So first off, I'm going to do these ones right here. Okay, so they kind of go from my road edge to my pond, forest, park area, whatever you want to call it. So first thing I would do is I would go through and select, so these lot lines that go from my road edge, okay, out into my park. So my road edge out into my park. Here I have my road edge to my park, road edge to the park. Okay, here I have road edge to the park. I'll probably select these ones too, because they touch my road edge at some point. Okay, only the ones that touch my road edge. If I don't touch the road edge, not the best idea to do that right now. Okay, so I've got those selected. Go out to feature line from objects. Make sure it's to the right site. These ones I'm just feature next counter is fine. I'm going to keep the existing entity. I want to assign elevations to it. I hit OK. I want to go from the surface and I want to choose the road surface because that's where I want to make sure those touch and get the elevation from. I don't want to insert intermediate grade breakpoints, so don't have that checked. I hit OK. Now these are feature lines, but if you look at the elevation editor, their only feature line, the only elevation they have is at the road edge. So I need to adjust the back. And unlike the other one where I did it to FG, I'm going to change this just a little bit. But first off, what I want to do is I want to add those intermediate points along here as well. So if I select these, insert in the elevation point, I'm going to put one there. Right, and I do the next one. So elevation point right there. Keep that elevation. Okay, next one, elevation point right there. All right, next one, elevation point right there, and so on. I'm going to pause it while I finish up, and then I'll come back. Alright, so now I've gone through and I've done all those. I've put basically a breakpoint along all of these ones. Now I need to build the back of these lots. So what I want to do first is I want to go through and make sure everything slopes the right way. So if I select this feature line here and I go to elevation editor, okay, you'll notice that the one that has the elevation at the beginning, that's the road. So I want to go from the road, I want it to go up at a 1%, okay, and then I want it to go down at a -1%. Alright, so it's a little different than the other one, because I'm not concerned to where this back one ends, just as long as it's 1%. So then I select that next one, and I want it to go up at a +1 and down at a -1. Alright, then I choose the next one. Alright, elevation editor, up at a +1, down at a -1. Alright, choose my next one. Alright, up at a +1, down at a -1. The only one that you don't want to change is you want to make sure this first one here, the one that was at the FG, the road, doesn't change. So I'll choose the next one, elevation editor, up at a 1, down at a -1. And in this little block area, this is my last one, so I'm going to do up at a 1, down at a -1. Alright, and I do the same thing for the other ones. Okay, and then once you've done all of these other ones at the same way, then you want to build the back lot. Now if I go here and choose feature line from objects and pick the back lot, okay, and I just keep it as is there, I don't want to erase it, I do not want to assign elevations to it, I hit OK, and now you'll notice if I select this line, because these lines that I created are touching it, okay, it gives those elevations to that line in between. So these little grade points, it picked the elevation from these lines to assign to that line. Okay, and we'll tweak that back lots later to flow the way we want it. Okay, but now if I were to go and do my grading in these areas, so if I go back up to grading, creation tools, make sure I'm still in my lot grading. Okay, if you weren't, you'd want to select the right grading group, but I am. Choose my infill, and I start to go in here and infill these little lots. And now I've got those ones added to the surface, and just like I did over here, you'd want to make sure that everything slopes right. So here it's too flat, so I raise that by 1/2 foot. That works. Select this one, raise that by 1/2 foot, fixes that one. Select this one, raise that by 1/2 foot, fixes that one. Now they're all sloping at least a 1% and less than 25%. And now you continue off on these other ones. So I'm going to, actually, before I continue, you'll notice that my cul-de-sac right away is bigger than what I ended up with for my cul-de-sac. So I'm going to want to extend these lines to hit that feature line. So I can actually do an extend, EX, pick that feature line, and then extend these lines in. Okay, it's starting to get glitchy here. But now that those ones hit, now that's how I want it to work. And I do the same thing down here. They don't extend, so I want to make sure that they do extend. So I extend to that feature line. Because that feature line is so intensive, when I click on these lines, it's really bogging down. Okay, so now I'm going to pause it while I go around and I finish doing my other ones. Okay, so now I've gone through and I've done all these lots at a +1 and a -1. So now I can add these lines here as feature lines. However, I noticed that this one doesn't connect to this one, and that's okay because it'll be tweaked later. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this one, this one, this one, this one, that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. And I'm going to create those as feature lines. So I go to feature line from object, same grading site, feature next counter is fine. Don't assign any elevations, don't erase, hit OK. Now when I click on these, you're going to notice that if I look at the elevation editor, one of them is still 0. It's this point here because it didn't know what to do because it wasn't touching one of these. But where this touched, right here, it actually gave that elevation according to that 1% slope. Now, what I would probably do in this situation like this, because it's a back a lot and I probably have a catch basin back here or something like that, I probably want to make sure that this flows down at a 1% there and a 1% there. So what I probably would do is, since this elevation is not going to change, I'm going to go here and grade back at, let's say, I think it should be -1. Now it's dropping still, so it's basically all flowing down to this point. So I'll accept that. If I select this one, now you'll see that, oh, it didn't suck up to that one. It should have. But I would want to change this one so that the grade ahead would be a -1. Let's see if it should suck the other one in to be the right elevation. No, it's not. So for some reason right here they probably aren't touching. Yep. Not quite sure why those aren't touching. So what I would probably do in this situation is make sure that, so that elevation is 1042.45. So I'm probably going to make, well, if I look at this one, 1039.59. Since that's lower, I'm going to make it the other one 1039.59. So make this one here 1039.59. Or, I mean, you could also take this line, move it out, take it back, snap to that line, and it would probably suck up to the right elevation. Make sure that's to the roads. Yeah, something got tweaked up there, but alright, now making sure they looks like they're all correct on that line. So this one would be the same thing where I'd probably want to make sure that that one, oh, so some reason it didn't pick up the elevation of the FG there, which is that point. So I'm going to do elevation from surface using the FG. Okay, so it gives me the right spot there. This part here is still at 0, so I want to make sure that that flows the right direction. So I'm going to go here at a grade back at a -1. So that's 1043.36 now. If I take a look at this, okay, that one must have been touching because it accepted it. Okay, so then you do the same thing here. Take a look at my elevation editor. It looks like everything's given a right elevation. There's no zeros, so that should be good. Okay, this one here, okay, it's got a 0. This one here got a 0 on both ends. So find where the road is. So that one's at the road, because you can see it puts a triangle around it when it's selected. Make sure that one's to the road. Make sure that from here, the grade ahead to that one, so we want it to be a -1%. So it's still going downhill. So now it's all going to here. Now that's automatically sucked that one in, so it's no longer 0. Here I want to make sure that, okay, so the road is not picking up there, so that one's the road because it puts the triangle around. So I set the elevation to my road FG there. Make sure that it's flowing downhill, so the grade back from this one would be a -1. And now everything's flowing the right way. And this one, if everything's connected right, it did pick up the elevation, so we're good there. Now that we've got that, we can start doing our grading or infill for those. So I go to grading, and you could actually go to create grading infill. It'll automatically pick it up. And I pick these, that. Okay, and we're almost getting there. Alright, now that I got that, now I can do like I did before and make sure all the building pads are at the right elevation so we don't have the flat spots. So like this one, I'm going to raise that by 0.5. Alright, now I'm starting to get warnings, so I probably have to do an audit or something. Raise that by another 0.5. Okay, so that fixed that one. So I'll raise this one by another 0.5. Okay, didn't fix it, so I'm going to raise it by another 0.5. Raise that one by 0.5. Alright, didn't fix that, so raise it by another 0.5. Whoops, nope. Raise it by another 0.5. And fixed it. Go to the next one. Raise that by 0.5. Gotta go up another 0.5. Okay, so that looks like it's working. Looks like these ones are working. This north line needs to be fixed, so I'm going to raise this one. And on this one, I'm going to do something with that error. So I raise it. Now, I've got this error thing that pops up with all these. I am going to take a look at, I'm just going to clear all events. So action, clear all events. I'm going to raise this one again. Let's see if I can get to the bottom of this. So it's got some information. So surface, lot grading is the source. So it's got some duplicate points, so it's not really an issue. I could zoom to, so somewhere in this area here, there's some issues, but on these curves, just ignore it. Okay, so I go through and make sure that all those are at the right elevation. So 0.5. Oh, I need to raise it up 0.5. Okay, then it's probably a good idea to do an audit. Fix your errors if you have any. Okay, no errors, so that's good. Probably a -pu for purge. Purge out the reg apps. Hit enter, and then when it says verify the name, make sure you hit no. Looks like 3 registered apps were deleted. Save it just to make sure that I don't lose things. Okay, and I'm gonna move on to the next one. So I would tweak this, but just for time purposes, I'm gonna just keep moving on. So now what I want to do is I've got 8 lots left before I'm all done. So again, I want to make these into their feature lines. So if I were to make sure they're touching the FG out here, the road surface. So I'm going to select this one, this one, this one, and this one, as well as this one, this one, this one, and that one. I'm going to make those all feature lines. So I go up to feature line from objects. Okay, keep it all as is. I am going to assign elevations to that one. And I'm going to assign it from the FG, but no intermediate grade breakpoints. Okay, and then it should create those. Now with these ones, you'll see that it did pick up the elevation at the road. I just need to add intermediate points to all of these. So if I pick this one, insert elevation point, so I'm going to put one right out maybe here. Accept that. Alright, next one, I'm going to put an elevation point like right here. Accept that. Put an elevation point about right there. And these elevation points can be moved around. If you don't like where they are, you can always move them. So I'll accept that one. What I mean by that is if you select this, you can grab that grip and move it to a new point if you want. I'm going to put mine right there. Okay, I'm going to grab this one, put an intermediate point right there. Take this one, elevation point right there. Elevation point right there. Another one right there. Okay, now that I've got those in, make sure they're grading out at a 1%, just like I did with the other ones. So I'll start with this one, elevation editor. I want to go from the road up at a 1%, down at a -1. Alright, next one, I want to go up at a +1, down at a -1. Okay, next one, up at a +1, down at a -1. Again, up at a +1, down at a -1. Okay, and you just keep going. Oh, this one's backwards. So this one, my road is at the end. So if you're confused and you want it to be the other way, one thing you can do is click this little button right here and it flips it. And then you can actually do the same way. Otherwise you'd have to work backwards, which is possible, but it may make sense to flip it. Okay, this one, again, it's wrong way around, so I'm going to flip it. So +1, -1, You just don't want to change that one that has the elevation at the FG, at the road. Oh, this one will flip again. +1, -1. And last one here. Oh, flip it. +1, negative, whoops, -1. And once you got that done, then we can create these back lots as feature lines from objects. I don't want to assign an elevation to these. I want them to pick up the elevation of those other feature lines. Now if I click on these, hopefully they did pick up. Alright, they did pick up, and those other ones should have picked up as well. Now you can go back to your grading, do infills for all of these. And just like you would have done before, go through and make sure that tin lines are swapped, that the building pads are at the right elevation so we don't have flat spots, we don't have steep spots. But that right there in a nutshell is all the lot grading. So we'll come back. I'll probably make another video showing you how to make your back lots drain to high spots, low spots, put the pond in, and then once we got that in, then we're ready for pipe networks. So you notice that one thing is this one seemed to disappear. So I gotta sometimes gradings do weird different things. So one fix for this may be to, if you get something like this, I'll show you it now, just create a feature line. Okay, just put it to the right site, and then I can do something like go from, let's say this corner, and I choose my surface of lot grading. Hopefully it picked up. No, it looks like it didn't. Feature line. I'm going to go from that point up to that point. And it came back. So sometimes great. So now this one's messed up too, so I'd probably do the same thing with that. Alright, so that looks good. So make sure to save, and we're done.